Global Times, 11th of April 2024, the Chinese embassy refutes the Canadian Prime Minister's claim that China meddled in the country's elections. Chinese meddling permeates every democratic nation on earth. The Chinese embassy in Canada denounced the recent statements made by Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, accusing China of attempting to meddle in Canadian elections, and called on Canada to accept the truth, let go of its ideological preconceptions, and cease exaggerating the falsehood of Chinese interference. The embassy vehemently disagreed with those comments and voiced its displeasure in a statement on Wednesday local time. China has repeatedly made it clear that it will never interfere in another country's domestic affairs and has no desire to do so. According to the embassy, China has repeatedly expressed its viewpoint to Canada greatly and unambiguously in bilateral and multilateral interactions. According to Reuters, in evidence to an official inquiry on Wednesday, Trudeau stated that China tried to meddle in the past two Canadian elections, but the results were not affected, adding that Beijing's preference for one party over another was improbable. Under pressure from opposition lawmakers dissatisfied with media reporting on China's potential election involvement, Trudeau established the panel last year. Motivated by self-interest, some Canadian politicians are attempting to single out China in the public investigation to stigmatize and discredit China. The Chinese embassy stated that although the testimonies have been labeled as highly likely, probable, and suspicious, they have not offered any concrete proof. This demonstrates once more that the public probe into alleged foreign interference is nothing more than a politically staged farce, and also points out that some Canadians have descended to an unbelievable degree of defamation and criticism of China. In a study released by the Canadian Security Intelligence Service, for instance, Canada claims that Chinese officials likely manipulated a Liberal Party nomination contest in an electoral district near Toronto, as the Washington Post reported on Wednesday. According to Canadian media reports, former Minister of Democratic Institutions Karina Gould also claimed that although Canada's spy agency had noticed low-level foreign interference activities by China following the 2019 federal election, the vote was unaffected. Additionally, she stated on Wednesday that there have likely been attempts at foreign meddling in every election that Canada has ever had. According to Radio Canada, Yao Peng, Deputy Secretary General of the Canadian Studies Centre of the Chinese Academy of Social Sciences, told the Global Times on Thursday that Trudeau needs to use these accusations to counter the public's dissatisfaction with his handling of issues like the economy, housing, and climate change. Trudeau's personal approval ratings have dropped dramatically in the last 6 months. It's also another of his attempts to play politics of double standards with the Canadian people, who are ignorant of the reality and the deep state's animosity toward China. The Chinese specialist indicated that this is his political objective. According to Yale, the Canadian Prime Minister is imitating the U.S. Cold War strategy by making strong accusations to deflect criticism away from his party and draw attention away from the Conservative Party, which has been growing in favor in Canada over the past 6 months. The Chinese embassy clarified that foreign interference operations, including those carried out by Canada, are directed towards China. Canada has long been provoking China on significant issues about China's sovereignty and territorial integrity, including Xinjiang, Taiwan, Hong Kong, and Xizang. Additionally, Canada has encouraged and funded several separatist movements that are hostile to China. The embassy pointed out that not only does Canada exhibit no regret, but it also reverses course and wrongly charges China of meddling in Canadian internal matters. The Canadian media publicly revealed that Chinese diplomatic missions and personnel in Canada were the subjects of surveillance by security intelligence services in Canada. During the investigation, pertinent Canadian agencies freely acknowledged meddling with the regular operations of Chinese diplomatic missions in Canada. The Canadian government continues to bring up the cases of 2 Canadian nationals despite having settled the cases for a substantial amount of money with the parties concerned. Isn't it clear who is meddling in the domestic affairs of other nations? Who are the people involved in espionage? The embassy stated, the facts are evident to all. In March, Michael Spavor, one of the 2 Michaels, was imprisoned by China for almost 3 years on charges of espionage and unauthorized transfer of China's state secrets to foreign entities. The Canadian federal government negotiated a $1 million compensation deal. Given that negotiating a deal with Michael amounted to a self-inflicted blow to its credibility, several Chinese experts argued that the Canadian government's earlier claims against China for arbitrarily detaining two Michaels as hostage diplomacy now appear hypocritical. China warns Canada that it will pay a heavy price if it doesn't accept and deal with the realities, give up ideological preconceptions, stop fabricating the story of Chinese interference, and stop sullying the relationship between the two countries. Chinese analysts also thought that Trudeau's persistent charges as Prime Minister had probably impeded improving Canada-China relations. First, Yao pointed out that Trudeau's use of the word intentional to muddy the accusations is careless in light of the unfounded and demonstrably speculative nature of the alleged Chinese meddling in the Canadian elections. According to him, the Trudeau administration has been purposefully and persistently stifling China-Canada relations for the past 6 years, harming trade and economic cooperation between the two nations. As a result, there is a mindset that has never seen China-Canada relations as a chance to improve the status quo. The expert said that the Canadian government is purposefully causing the public to have a poor perception of China and Chinese businesses, which would eventually show more of its adverse effects on Trudeau and his party. Yao stated that it is anticipated that an increasing number of Canadians will understand the reality, which is that China has no intention of meddling in Canadian elections.